This guy is Chang Dan-che. Every day he just sits in his room staring at the TV. Having lost his parents since childhood, yet somehow today he ended up watching a sappy family drama with an unbelievably ridiculous ending. Even though he had planned to switch channels, he ended up crying uncontrollably and became determined to become a screenwriter so his parents in the afterlife could watch his films. Becoming a screenwriter was already difficult, but his own mentor stole his ideas and became viral thanks to a script he didn't even work for. It seemed like life had come to a standstill, but then a miracle happened. Heaven saw that he was too dark and granted him a payment system script. Can you defeat the teacher who stole the script? If so, let's all 500 of us follow along together. In the dark room, the TV was on, a thought ran through, a picture that lasts forever. I don't know who or when I heard that, but it's something that remains in my heart. After my parents' death in a car accident when I was in high school, I realized that our family didn't have a single video of the most ordinary moments in life. That night, I watched a movie in an empty house that I couldn't remember the name of. It was a daily family drama, but pretty crazy. The parent presumed dead returns to embrace the daughter who is struggling to survive, bursting into tears. It was truly a ridiculous sight. Usually, I would switch the channel immediately, but for some reason that day, I was sobbing because of it. Maybe I want that impossible thing to happen to me. Since then I've wanted to become a screenwriter. If I can write a famous script, my parents will watch it from heaven. There are many cases in life, but there are only 3 ways to become a screenwriter. Method 1, win a competition. Build relationships and skills by working as a writing assistant. 3 ways to write a top-notch script that all production companies crave. I, Dan-che, am the second type. At this moment, Taden is reading something. On TV, a news report is currently airing. The second episode has reached 15%, and the film is among the top searches. Tune into the hot film Sunday Candy story. Suddenly, Dan-che flung the door open. After that, he shouted, "Teacher, how could you do that?" He turned around and asked, "What is it?" He snatched the book from Taden's hand. He was surprised. Then he opened it to see. Then asked, "This is my idea, right?" Dan-che read each sentence carefully and then continued, "This is your character. This is my script." At the same time, the host also mentioned Sunday Candy, the movie that showcases the splendid transformation of screenwriter Kim Taden. He slammed the book down hard on the table, shouting to confirm, "Sunday Candy is my work." At that moment, he finally spoke, "Dan-che. Sure, here is the translation based on your requirements. It's true that I was somewhat influenced by your idea, but is it a bit much to say this is my work? You seem a bit stunned." Then he asked. The teacher said, "Really?" He answered without hesitation, "Yeah." You slightly parted your lips. Dan-che found it ridiculous. In his mind, he thought, "This is ridiculous." Kim Taden edited his script with a few supporting characters. He just increased the screen time for the supporting couple by adding more details. He clenched his fists tightly. Above all, that story was also taken from the script for his play. I'll report it to the Copyright Association. Then he said, "I will post everything online. I will make it as loud as possible." He stood up, replied nonchalantly, "No. You can't do that," he said. "Why are you scared?" He held the phone in front of Dan-che and said, "I just transferred 50 million kwon into your account. That's the price for your idea." He stood in shock, his eyes wide open. He continued, "You have made a lot of money from learning from me and developing ideas, but since the movie became more famous than expected, you have become even greedier. So you plan to threaten me because I took a little idea, and you want to get more than 50 million won?" Taden placed his hand on his shoulder. "Dan-che, why are you trying to bypass my arrangements? A scene unfolds, have you heard? The young writer under screenwriter Kim Taden committed suicide." Then he suddenly reached out his hand, and you looked on in surprise. Then he said, "If the movie ends well, I will wholeheartedly help you reach the top." Dan-che thought it was not a bad suggestion. Then you slowly brought your hand over. When their hands were about to touch each other, then he suddenly pulled his hand back and raised his middle finger. And with disdain, "Not a chance, you old thief." Then Dan-che stepped outside, slammed the doors shut, and continued to think that there were only 3 ways to become a screenwriter. Winning a competition is the way to go. The second way is to build relationships and writing skills by working as a writing assistant. 3 ways. Write an amazing script that all production companies crave. I, Dan-che, am a type 2. Today, I am stepping out of the chicken coop and starting over. One time at the office, Kim Tae-jin slammed the movie script onto the table. Then, while sipping his coffee, he asked, "How's the script? Do you know why it failed during the planning meeting?" He focused on the script in his hands for a moment, then replied, like his teacher. The first part is quite good, but the second part is a bit confusing. The story of two top actors facing off against each other. But for some reason, they appear in a romantic movie. The casting for the main character is good, but the development of the story is quite disappointing. This is a romantic story with added humor. I thought romance alone would be funny enough, but it seems like it can be quite enjoyable in this story. He heard your answer and continued to ask. Alright, now tell me, how do you plan to change the script? He stared thoughtfully at the script in his hand for a long while. The scene shifts to the present, and the sky has already darkened. He sat in the room, continuously chugging from the bottle in his hand. On the table, there were scattered empty bottles, and I don't know how much you've drunk. In the dimly lit room, you hung your head, feeling incredibly low, and thought to yourself, you had considered many options, but there is no way to destroy Kim Tae-jin. MBS will try to avoid any noise about the trending film, and other production companies will do the same. In the end, I was the only bad person, a small writer blinded by money, stabbing the teacher in the back. That will be my fate. No matter how skilled you are at writing, if you end up on the blacklist of the TV station, you won't be able to work anymore. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but curse, damn it. His mood sank to the bottom, feeling like there was no way out. So, he downed the entire bottle of liquor in one go, continuously calculating in his mind. Once he became famous with an outstanding script and had the power to speak out, he would definitely target Kim Tae-jin. He needed to become a screenwriter on par with Kim Tae-jin so that his words would be credible. After thinking for a moment, he hesitated. Then sadly mumbled to himself, but it's not that easy. Even if I shut up and go write the script, Kim Tae-jin won't leave me alone thanks to his connections. By now, he was so frustrated that he threw himself backward and let out a tired sigh. He pondered to himself, should I file a lawsuit or not? According to the broker, I'll get money if I sell the apartment inherited from my parents. If I had that amount of money, Kim Tae-jin, he said, then tightly gripping his trembling fist, continued. No, I can't. Clearly, Kim Tae-jin has the upper hand with a pile of money and personal connections. Then you stood up, walked to the floor-to-ceiling window, and looked down at the opulent city below. You touched the glass door. Then, unwilling to give up, he shouted while pounding his fists on the glass door. You tried to reassure yourself, I can't give up. They say a gentleman's revenge can wait 10 years. After becoming the king of screenwriting and gaining fame, I will reveal the true nature of Kim Tae-jin. I can do it. Not long after, a stack of scripts was brought to the table by him. He crossed his arms, looked at the scripts in front of him, and said, Great. Next, he carefully examined each page of the script, thinking to himself that there was so much to learn from other scripts. Even with the same scene, the script can change entirely depending on the writer, so a screenwriter needs to always live with the script. In the moment he thought this, suddenly, a light flashed from the pile of scripts. He stared in amazement at the glowing script. The script made some strange sounds, as if inviting him to touch it. You wonder curiously, what's this, then slowly reach out toward it. After touching the glowing script, a series of bright fragments flew up. Next, a notification popped up, showing the payment window for the script. He screamed in shock and immediately pulled his hand back as the notification rang out again. You can buy 200 words of the script with a rate of 0.1%. The current viewer count of the buyer is 2.13%, and the current script has 4,200 words. The purchase script may differ from the actual one. You widened your eyes in surprise and asked, Payment window script. So you boldly reached out to touch it. But to his surprise, his hand went right through it. He waved his hand in the air, but couldn't touch anything. The system displayed another notification, stating that the scenario you're engaging with currently has 6 episodes aired and 1 yet to air. You can only buy scripts that haven't been released yet. Then another question popped up, the script hasn't been aired yet. Do you want to buy part 3 of Musik Sesiota? Below there were 2 options, yes or no. He frowned and thought to himself, what the heck is this? Buying a script with rating? And what does 2.13% mean? So he kept repeating the number 2.13%. A moment later, as if he had come up with something, he exclaimed, Oh, it's the rating of the hunting and collecting season, that's the 2-act play I wrote. And then he wondered, what about the movie setup? He rested his hands on his knees and bowed his head, thinking about the things Kim Tae-jin had done. He reflected on the script Kim Tae-jin had given him to use as a turning point. Suddenly, the announcement echoed again. There wasn't much time left to pay. It kept asking, do you want to buy part 3 of Musik Sesiota? Below are 2 options, yes or no. He nervously thought, I don't know, maybe this is just something strange from drinking too much soju after being stabbed in the back by Kim Tae-chun. Or maybe it's all just a dream. But deep in my heart, I yearn for a miracle to happen. You reached out towards the system screen, your face full of hope, and said, let's stand up to that old man. Then he smiled confidently and said, we will witness a miracle. The notification pops up reminding you that you have chosen to purchase part 3 of the movie STA script. Then it asked again, how many words do you want to buy? The minimum amount is 200 words for no less than 1%. You did not hesitate to choose 200 words, thinking to yourself, all I want to know is the end of this crazy situation, it's not a script that's irrelevant to me. The message continues to appear. You will pay 0.03 per view. Your current view rate is 2.03%. The announcement was over, and the system immediately vanished. He silently looked into the sky for a moment. Then, he rummaged through the scripts in front of him. Then he walked away, a bit disappointed, muttering to himself, how could it be real? What are you expecting? Get a grip, wake up. Suddenly, his foot kicked something, and he was startled. He lifted his foot cautiously and looked down. It was the script of the movie star. You froze in disbelief and exclaimed, I really have the script. Because he was so curious, Don decided to pick up the script and read it. All printed scripts are my study materials, so there can't be any script printed that I don't know about. Tell yourself that if everything happening is real, then this script will contain 200 words as I purchased. Don quickly flipped through the script in hand. Very quickly he realized and saw 200 words. This script describes a close-up shot of a sharp knife in Ha-dun's hand. Ha-dun looked down at the knife and smirked. She then looked up at Sung-dong, who was stunned. Sung-dong stuttered. Don't do that. Ha-dun said with a sympathetic tone that I couldn't do it any other way. Ha-dun rushed forward with a shout. As Ha-dun's knife stabbed into Sung-dong's stomach, blood flowed down. Sung-dong couldn't believe looking at Ha-dun while clutching his stomach, but the heroine kept stabbing him. Yeon read this and was completely dumbfounded. The movie I know for sure is a romantic film between the male and female leads. This script, who knows where it came from, has the female lead trying to kill the male lead. Yeon wondered what the main character had done. After flipping through the next pages of the script, he was even more amazed. A special line of text printed below says that the estimated average viewership with the existing script is 1.8%, while the estimated average viewership with the purchased script is 15.2%. Yeon tried reading the line a few more times to make sure her eyes weren't crossed. Finally, when he realized what he was reading, he shouted, What? 15.2%? Everything hit me all at once, and so strangely that the first thing Yeon needed to check was his brain health. He turned to modern science first, honestly telling the doctor that scenarios started lighting up and a painted window popped up. A new scenario appeared. I could even touch it. The psychologist waved it off, saying it was normal. Yeon asked about the glowing script, and the doctor said, I mean, the condition of your son. The doctor opened the health assessment chart on the screen for Yeon to see and explained that if you look here, you'll see your stress level is quite low, lower than the average stress level of office workers, around 10% in the writing industry. He asked the doctor again to be sure if that was good. The doctor smiled reassuringly. Of course, I don't think you have anything to worry about. Yeon felt as if a heavy burden had been lifted as she left the mental health clinic. He breathed a sigh of relief. It seemed everything from last night was real. He decided to stop at the park on his way home, stopped by a vending machine to buy a drink, and sat on a bench. As he opened the drink, he thought about the payment window and the script. He didn't know where it came from, wondering if everything was real. So the rating at the bottom of the page is real too. It's not just a 1 to 2% increase but 13.7%, so it sounds unbelievable. Could Movie Soda have some hidden potential? Yeon decided to take out her phone to call Choi. I need to see part 3 of the original script. In Choi's dark office, the phone suddenly rang. The other end quickly picked up the phone. Yes, hello, Yeon asked what he was doing, editing? The other side replied yeah. Yeon asked in surprise, you've been working overtime for 3 days. Maybe 3 weeks, hang in there, I'll be home soon after the movie ends. He played with his dark circled eyes while working and asked me. I know, but why did you call me? He suddenly mentioned Kim Tae-chun, who just became famous. Did you go to the party? Yeon thought to herself, just one day after arguing with Tae-chun, do people still think I'm the talented little writer of Tae-chun? Yeon suddenly said thank you, but Choi, confused, asked why. I was about to ask him for the script and the personal information of the screenwriter, but Yeon told him there was nothing and ended the call. I realized I could just call the TV station. Taechun will go crazy if he finds out, but who cares? Yun called the TV station. The phone rang a few times before someone answered. Writer Jian, is there any special occasion? Yun smiled and replied. Hello, producer Du, how have you been lately? Yun politely said. Congratulations on your success this time. Why should I be congratulated? It's my teacher, the writer Jiang asked. Do you know what will happen to Taechun soon? I don't mean to pressure you, Yan replied. I called you about that. Yan seriously asked if I could get the script that's been circulating recently. The production team was surprised and asked. A script? He said yes, that's right. The teacher said he was quite curious. Production asked which one you wanted. Yan held the phone, thinking that if she spoke directly now, it would be quite awkward. So, she decided to just tell the production that she could request Musik Suta and the independent Missouri Dan O Jayat. The producer's answer left Yan stunned. Oh, those two? I have both. I'll send them in a message. Yan asked again. Really? The producer confirmed. Yes, I said I have both of them. But how is this possible when that was just a title I came up with, yet he already got it? The producer, even though he said nothing, kept urging. Hello, writer Zhang. Yun quickly replied. Oh yes, please send it to me. Production is fine with it, but I'm in a meeting right now, so I'll send it to you later. The person sitting across from him asked who that was. I heard the name Kim Taechun. The producer hurriedly explained, oh, that's the writer Zhang Yan Che, a talented assistant in Taechun's office. A short-haired girl nodded. Van Fong Taechun ah. She asked if he had debuted yet. The production team, flustered, said that it was a one-act, two-part play airing on MBS. I'm close to him because he writes really well. By the way, your script is really captivating, you know? Just as expected from writer Undong, the girl listened seriously. Really? What did he say? The screenwriter reiterated the review, noting that while the details are somewhat old-fashioned, they are incredibly elaborate, and it truly is a fresh story. Undong took a sip of coffee and said, I see. The producer asked her about the situation at the TV station and what the other writers said. Undong told me he hadn't shown them yet. Producer Du was the first. Production Du asked in surprise, really? Why? Then why did he ask for the script of Class IMO Dan Er Jayat? Undong widened his eyes. Who asked? Production Fear explained writer Jiang. I just talked on the phone. Of course, I didn't give him the script. I also intended to ask you because I thought you only showed it to me for feedback, not for broadcasting. Undong kept asking if that person was really asking you about the script for the Class IMO Dan O Jayat. Are you sure that's the name? The production was a bit hesitant. Might sound a little different. Undong angrily scolded. Not at all. That name is no different at all. He nodded. Yeah, he did say it was Emodaneo Jayat. Is there a problem? Undong folded his arms and said someone had read the script for work, but I only gave him this name 3 days ago. Producing sweat-inducing content, so if someone knows about the name Kitch Ban. Undong continued, saying that only the producer and I were there. She emphasized that it's just the two of us. Undong frowned and said, tell me the number of those people. Very quickly, Sanzatu sent you 2 scripts along with the message. I sent the scripts via email, but you absolutely must not leak the scripts of the Imo Dan Ejot class. Not even to the writer Taechun. If you leak, we will take legal action. After printing the script, Yan held a stack of papers in her hand. Looking at the scripts on the table, he couldn't manage a smile. Yan sighed, not happy at all. Even though there are 20 pages, the scene where the female lead stabs the male lead with a knife, which I read last time, is not here. Yan opened to page 22, where it was clearly written that Sungdong and Hadun faced each other. Sungdong stroked Hadun's cheek as if something had bitten him. He muttered, I knew it, and continued reading. Hadun glared. Sungdong frowned and said, I love you. Hasun would move closer to Sungdong. Do you really want to die? 2 completely different scripts. After reading the 3rd part, I realized the problem with that setup movie is the ambiguity with the characters. It could be a good script after revision, but what change in the 3rd part made the female lead want to stab the male lead? He touched his chin, pondering if there was a way to create a satisfying piece. But he was sure he understood the revised script. The essence of that script needed modification. He stretched, but this script has nothing to do with him. Maybe now is the time to buy the script if that payment window pops up. The best 16-episode series was stolen by that bastard Taechun. I wanted to develop the script for the one-act play for MBS and make those 16 episodes, but Taechun opposed me on the grounds that I wasn't capable enough. Looking back now, it seems like he was blocking me to avoid losing the chance to steal it, that bastard. Even if I write a one-act play, I will have to work with MBS, so it won't be easy since Tae-chun has a lot of influence there. Yeon thinks what she wrote before is quite old now. If she writes something new, she should message TVM, which is the least affected by Tae-chun. That's the most popular movie channel right now and the best choice for me. Yeon moves the mouse on the computer. He sees the producer sending him another script. Yeon curiously opened the script and wondered whose script it was that made him talk so much. But when Yeon saw the name, she was shocked. The author is Han and Undong. The author's name is currently a hot topic. Undong is one of the most outstanding screenwriters in Korea. The script of Undong is famous among new screenwriters as a learning tool. Once you watch it, you'll be manipulated and unable to write your own script anymore. Now you realize why the production team was so worried, constantly reminding you never to reveal it, not even to Tae-chun. If you leak it, we will take legal action. Yeon laughed, saying why is he like that? The production of Dulo is concerning not just because the script is from Undong, but also because Undong and Tae-chun are enemies. Thinking it over, I suddenly didn't understand why he sent it to me. He knows I'm under Kim Tae-chun. Since he sent it, I guess it's okay to check it out. So you clicked on the script folder for class IMO Dan Ujayat to print it out. I'm not used to reading scripts on the computer. I can read clearly, but I can't focus and picture the scene of the story. He smiled and chose to open the folder while the printer was running, because he couldn't wait until it was done printing anyway. After all, it was the script by the author Undong. His eyes were fixed on the script on the screen and he was intently reading. After a while, he suddenly realized he knew where the title of the scene IMO Dan Eo Jayat came from. The name suddenly popped into his mind earlier. I was supposed to talk about someone's work, but I really couldn't think of anything, so I ended up mentioning a name influenced by past experiences or thoughts. Because I once had the chance to think about this name in the past. Just as the printer finished printing the entire script of Module IMO Dan E Jayat, that strange phenomenon happened again. The script on his desk suddenly lit up. A notification frame appeared in front of him, and since the script was glowing, it meant that I can buy the script of Undong, and the notification on the screen shows if you want to buy part 2 of the script for IMO Danio Jayat class. Does it mean there's a place to revise an Undong's script? So many temptations flow out of him. How will it change? But it's the script of Undong. How much will the rating increase when it's edited? At least about 30%. Is there a chance the script doesn't need any edits? I want to see it. I really want to see it. I want to read it right now. I'm too curious. I want to read it right now. Right then, his phone rang, and he saw it was an unknown number. Yeon was still on the phone when the other person on the line asked if this was Jong Yeon's number. He replied, "Yes, it is. Who's this?" "I am screenwriter Han Undong. I have something to ask you. Can we meet for a moment?" Yeon stayed completely silent, leaving Undong confused. She urged Jong-ah, and he quickly responded, Yes, I'm here." The window in front of him lit up with another notification saying there wasn't much time left to pay. "Do you want to buy part 2 of the script?" The voice on the phone said that I was actually in front of your house. Yeon, feeling pressured from both sides, seemed a bit flustered. "What's going on?" Just now, the screen displayed a message saying you had purchased the second part of the script for the class. IMO Dan Jayat. Yeon screamed in fear. "No, don't." On the other end of the line, Undong asked. "What? I can't hear you clearly." Yeon gritted her teeth and thought to herself, I'm not buying it. Luckily, the notification window says you have successfully cancelled the transaction. On breathe a sigh of relief, Undong asked. "Jong, are you listening? Can I come up?" He nodded and replied, "Yes, you can. Please come up." The call ended quickly. Yeon froze, wondering if she wanted to ask him something. The only connection between me and Undong is that we both used to be assistant writers for Tae-chun. However, it seems like I only know one side of the story. Back when I was under Tae-chun, a few years ago, before Undong and Tae-chun became enemies. Finally, the two people sat facing each other in Yeon's house. Undong, feeling awkward, said, "I'm sorry for coming here without any prior notice." He replied, "It's alright, I didn't have anything to do anyway. What do you want to ask?" Undong said, "I want to ask about your intention to leak the title of Class 1 Modin Ujayat. I came here to make sure things are as I thought." He looked confused and asked what she meant. Undong smiled reassuringly. "Please stay calm, John, you can trust me." His face was full of doubt, not understanding what she was saying. But why did she think I was planning to spread her script title? Undong said I thought it was his cry for help. Yeon repeated the distress signal. "Why should I send you a distress signal?" Undong nodded vigorously and said, "Yes, there is." She looked at him and said the name of a script, C&A. Yeon's expression immediately changed. She said it was the movie written by Jong, right? If I say I'm Tae-chun's assistant screenwriter, 9 out of 10 people will ask the same question. Why did Tae-chun and Undong get divorced? At that time, you will be annoyed and respond that what I know is exactly the same as what the media says. Their wedding used to top the search rankings, and now their divorce is trending as well. Undong was the one who filed for divorce, right? Does that mean there's an issue with Tae-chun? He has been wondering about the issue. The situation on Tae-chun's side is also very difficult. He's standing smoking with the production team. The staff commented to him that Sandae was not good at all. Tae-chun puffed on his cigarette. Do you think so? He said bluntly. There are many interesting things up to part 3. I feel like you're ready for a leap to part 5, but part 6 is completely awful. If this keeps up, the rating will drop. I have a question. He looked at Tae-chun. Shouldn't the situation in part 3 be used for part 5 or part 6? Tae-chun replied, at first I was going to do that, but I think the storyline this way will be better. The staff, confused, asked, but the current storyline is good, isn't it? Is there any producer who doesn't know about Tae-chun's talent for building plots? It's on the right track, but the scenes are too dull. Isn't this a common mistake for new screenwriters, with explosive and great ideas up to the 4th part, then starting to go downhill from the 5th part? Tae-chun flicked the ash from his cigarette, and Cindy was just like that. The staff noticed that his voice was starting to sound annoying, so he pretended to scratch his head, meaning don't be too hasty, give me a cigarette as well. The staff took the cigarette and asked, you're going to revise parts 5 and 6, right? Tae-chun nodded, yeah, rewrite your comments and send them to me by email. He sighed. I wonder if it means anything. By the way, who is that, the assistant scriptwriter of his? You're asking about Jisoo, right? The staff shook his head and said, no, it's a boy. I remember his name because it's quite rare. The screenwriter Nam. Tae-chun realized it was Yeon Che. The staff is right, Jong Yeon is cool. Did he join Cindy? He replied, no, now I'm planning to do it alone. The staff stubbed out his cigarette and said that your performance was quite interesting, but I found it somewhat similar. Maybe you need his help. Then he turned his back and said goodbye. I have to go now. The staff quickly returned to work, leaving only Tae-chun alone. He angrily crushed the cigarette in his hand. At Yeon's house, he is still chatting with Undong, while Sandae Cindy is the script written by Ka Jong. Do you know Tae-chun's Bamboo script? He immediately replied. Of course, it's a masterpiece by Tae-chun, isn't it? Undong frowned and said that was the first script blatantly stolen by Tae-chun. Yeon was shocked and jumped up. Did he steal Bamboo? Don't tell me that's your sister's script. She said it wasn't me, but I know he stole it. After watching Cindy, I think Tae-chun did it again. John's one-act play and the script he gave the producer told me that. Under Yeon's surprise, she asked him if it was true. Now he doesn't hold back anymore and nods in acknowledgement. Undong clenched his teeth in anger and cursed that bastard. Yeon asked again, and she said I sent a distress signal by spreading the name of the class. I am O Dan O Jayat Sol. Undong explained, yeah, I thought so because and I am the producer are the only ones who know this name. But Jong is the assistant screenwriter of Tae-chun, so he knows it, and he quietly thought he understood her intentions. Kim Tae-chun was deeply obsessed with the script written by Undong. At one point, he even tried to obtain it, and I found out how he managed to get his hands on it. He clasped his hands and wondered if this was too absurd. Yeon is right that my script was stolen, but I hadn't thought about sending you a distress signal. She wondered what you planned to do next. Yeon replied. I'm not doing anything right now. Undong heard it and jumped up. She raised her voice and asked him if he wasn't angry, since he had lost the script. Angry? Of course I am, Undong asked that. Yeon interrupted her. But because I was angry, I wanted to write better and get my revenge later. This made Undong stop for a moment. She took a deep breath and sat down in the chair. Yeon reminded herself. Right, I still have the script payment window to handle. She nodded and said, I think I misunderstood you. Then she suddenly remembered, how did you know that name? Right now, the doorbell rings. Yeon got up to ask for permission, probably the delivery person. I had ordered a few things. When he opened the door, he was incredibly surprised. Tae-chun at the door said. You didn't answer my call. Yeon hesitated for a moment. Finally, he smirked. You want the script for part 4, right? Deon-chae opened the door, thinking to himself. So he wants the script for part 4, why did Taejin come to see me? The answer is very simple. His screenplay for Sunday Candy is not good. I am the only one who has read the script for Part 3. The working style is completely different from Taechin. The success of Part 2 and the public's expectations made him come here to meet me. He said, I have both Part 5 and Part 6, do you need them? After finishing, he added, I'll sell it, just give me 1,000,001 proportion, I can hand it over right away. I have the money, you have the fame, how do you feel about that? Taejin sighed, Daeon Choi, I'm very interested in you. It would be such a waste for someone as talented as you to disappear from the industry. He asked, why do I have to disappear from the industry? He calmly replied, because I will do so. While they were talking, there was a girl standing outside. She opened the door and walked in, leaving Taejin stunned. Then he said loudly, go ahead and do it if you can. He was stunned, what was she doing here? She has nothing to do with this. She smiled. So what if I do? The talent of Mr. Jong, I need it. Daeon Che was terrified. What? He heard her say to him. Writer Jong, do you want to be my script assistant? Hearing that, Taejin quickly retorted, Assistant Screenwriter Undong, does anyone understand how you work? I don't even know what you're talking about. Undong shouted, who do you think made me do this complicated creative work? It's all because of you. And I told you, right? I need Jong's talent. He looked at her in confusion. Daeon Che also glanced over. She mocked him to his face. Don't you also not understand how this Taejin guy thinks? He clenched his teeth in anger, while Undong calmly said goodbye. All right, Jong, think it over and call me, he responded half-heartedly. I'll call the number you used. She waved, okay, see you later. Good luck with Sunday Candy over there. It should be quite interesting. She teased Taechin one more time, and then slammed the door shut. Daeon Che took this chance to slip away quickly. In the end, he was left all alone. At the parking lot, Undong rested his head on the steering wheel. Undong, what have you done? She remembered sitting at the cafe. Era said, I'm really confident about the script, but showing it to you makes me so nervous. She flipped through a few pages of the script and said, the show goes on in the bamboo forest. Era looked expectantly at Undong. A little later, she heard someone say, hey, that's great. Her friend asked excitedly. Really? Undong replied, Era, this is my favorite among all your scripts. I'm so happy, is it really true? Undong said that, so I think I can start with this now. The conversation ended, and some time later, a segment of the award ceremony was shown on TV. This is a work that has been gaining public attention. Please welcome the actor and screenwriter of The Star of the Gwyn in the Bamboo Forest. Ara Kooro sat in front of the TV screen. Undong is furious. Are you really planning to do nothing? Are you going to let the script fall into Taechin's hands? However, Era seemed like a lost soul. Ian came to advise her. Sue him, Era. I will file a lawsuit and get your script back. Give that damn Taechin a blow. Then write it again like before, Era. Hearing this, Era lowered her head and cried uncontrollably. Those who did wrong must be punished. I thought that was the most important thing. The story that followed in court. The plaintiff received 20 million won as a deposit from the defendant in exchange for the idea, and she used it for personal purposes right before the lawsuit was filed. She did participate as an assistant screenwriter, but according to the conventions of the screenwriting industry, this does not make her a co-author, so I declare the defendant not guilty. Taejin smiled after the long and losing lawsuit, and Era's name was put on the blacklist. And Ara could never reach her dream again, because she passed away shortly after. Undong collapsed before the portrait of his friend. Returning to the parking lot, she pondered alone. What if she hadn't sued back then? What if she had helped Era overcome the pain and guided her on a new path? Those thoughts have been swirling in my mind ever since I met Daeon Che, because he looks like Ara. Maybe I just wanted to shake off the guilt by helping him, only to misunderstand and think he was calling for help. But Daeon Che was wiser and braver than I thought. He said, because I'm angry, I want to write better and take revenge later. He wasn't swept away by anger and thought about the future. If I were Daeon Che that day, Ara would still be alive. I can't stop regretting it. In an apartment, 3 people were staring at the screen. The person next to me asked how much I should cut from the duration. The person sitting in the middle sighed. Each segment is 8 minutes, a total of 32 minutes, he said. It would be perfect if it were a feature film rather than a drama, he replied, but we are making a drama. While they were talking, the girl walked a bit farther away. Suddenly she snapped, swearing to God. I'll make a quick phone call and be right back. The boy quickly replied. All right, Dunchi. She stepped outside to make a call for a moment. Feeling both annoyed and rushed, he said. Pick up the phone, Hyung. The number you just called is not reachable. Dunchi, hearing this, squeezed the phone tightly and shouted, "Why can't I stay in touch with you, Don-che?" Don-che lay dazed on the bed. A moment later, he picked up the phone and looked at it. The screen shows 17 missed calls. He's surprised at so many missed calls, Munghan, Chungman, Bungtae. He smirked, all from Taejin's side, including Hunggun and Dunchi. Dunchi sent a series of messages. "What are you doing? Pick up my call. Are you still sleeping or just thinking? I need your input to edit the drama series for my juniors. We have to cut a total of 32 minutes, 8 minutes per episode. I'm so desperate that I want to give up on this project. I'll send the script and video via email." Looking at the messages, he thought to himself, she and her husband were the ones who helped him after his parents passed away, and Dunchi was their daughter. A bit of a hassle, but he needed to repay them bit by bit, so he replied, "Okay." After getting out of bed, he went to the sink. He splashed a handful of water on his face, and at first glance, he looked more awake. "I need to clearly understand the system, starting with the script." The original script written by the screenwriter is a free script, it's just the usual original script. And the script purchased through the system using the view rate is a paid script. You can buy 200 words for 0.1% of the view rate, but you cannot decide which part of the script to purchase. Finally, the script I received after purchasing was quite similar to the leaked script. It had no errors. Then there is the rating. When the script is not free to air, the rating can change, but when the script is free to air, the rating is fixed. Don-che yawned. "It's a bit hard to explain, but it'll be better later to avoid confusion. You'll get used to it soon enough. The current problem is I don't have a script to use the system. I've used up all my inspiration and resources for Sunday Candy." "Taechin, you damn bastard," he pulled out the pen. "Then mark up the script. Using the script from the free version for the movie set is fine too. Correct the errors in the script, and reorganize it is much more challenging than writing a new one. Even though it takes time, I'll still write a new script." An evening at a restaurant. Someone asked Don-che, "Did you write 2 script parts in a week? I heard you were fired from T-Chem's place. Who do you plan to give it to?" "TVM, T-Chem, and I don't get along." He asked, "What's the name?" You replied, "It's not official yet, but you can call it Black Friday." He was taken aback. "The Friday after Sunday? You have a sense of humor." "I'll defend myself. Let's see if I can still speak like this after hearing the story. Freddy is the hope of every employee, the main character staying alone at the company while everyone else has left, the sound of typing echoing through the room. When relaxing on the rooftop, the main character saw a cabinet right in front of him. The cabinet contained documents dated for next Friday, including a report on the company's heavy losses due to the stock price drop. On Monday, the main character discussed the stock market's downturn during the meeting. By changing the minds of the higher-ups, who initially ignored the concerns, the main character became the employee who saved the company by predicting the drop in stock prices. Next Friday, the protagonist goes up to the rooftop again to check, and an identical cabinet to the one from last week is waiting for him. He opens the cabinet with a pounding heart, and then freezes. Because next Friday's report documents his death due to a work accident. He listened to Don-che's story with his eyes wide and mouth agape. Proudly, he asked, "Well, is that enough? Do you think it's good? The pace of the story was right, wasn't it? But is there an opportunity for the female lead to appear?" He continued, "The prosecutor from the Ministry of Finance is the female lead. What you told me is the male lead's perspective." "Of course, there will be a scene with the female lead," he replied. "All right, since it's a movie, you surely know better than I do. Then you said send it to me via email?" I asked for what, and you replied that a senior of mine is looking for a new script. Don-che was surprised. A senior from SBC, he thought to himself. SBC is just as good as MBS but closer to Taejin. If MBS is the headquarters, SBC is the front hall and KBN is the backyard. While he was thinking, he spoke up again. "If you don't like it, that's fine, but if PDSBC likes it, it would be easier than if I gave it to TVM. It's a bit like looking at one mountain while ignoring another." He replied, "Yes, it's been a while since we last met. Are you different from usual?" A moment later, Don-che sat down at the computer as soon as he got home. "I've already sent an email to Hunggun." Finally, he glanced over at. The time to use the system has arrived. The script for Black Friday is printed. He picks it up. "What's this? Why is there no reaction? Last time it lit up immediately." He urgently called. "System, come here, system, unlock, open, window status." In the end, it worked, and he smiled. "This is the payment window scenario," he exclaimed in amazement. "Scenario payment window, perfect. Suddenly, a message appeared. You are currently in the tutorial phase. You need to meet 3 conditions to complete the tutorial. Condition 1, co-create 3 works. Condition 2, the average revenue share of the 3 works must be 20% or more. Condition 3, you must pay 100% of your revenue share. When the guidance ends, you will be promoted to expert user status. The promotion rewards are as follows. Reward 1, unlock the script payment window for your work. Reward 2, the actor suggestion window with a matching profile will be synchronized with your account. Che widened his eyes. Can I really pay for the paid script with my own work using this reward? But I can't use it until the tutorial ends. Finished, co-author. At first glance, it might seem easier and more comfortable with 2 writers, but hell will break loose if the co-author's style, mindset, and taste don't match those of the main writer. There's no guarantee the movie will be good just because a suitable co-writer is involved. This isn't a guide, it's about fighting system. Hold on, remember what Andong said? Do you want to be my script assistant? He hesitated, wondering if he could consider himself a co-writer even though he was just an assistant. Thinking for a moment, he said, System, speak. Right at that moment his phone rang. After he picked up the phone, Dunchi excitedly responded. Hello, he said, have you received the revised version? She cheerfully replied, yes, don't be surprised and listen carefully. Now it has 800,000 views on YouTube, 800,000. I think we'll get an international call and win that award. Without any response or elaboration, here's the translated text. She still didn't get a reply, so she asked, are you there? The rating of Kendo's going to be class is being calculated. Rating of Kendo's going to be class is 3.7%. Views increased by 1.1% due to your influence. Che was shocked. Influence how? He couldn't believe his eyes when he saw the words. Hey, what's the rating for this movie? He asked Dunchi. She replied on YouTube. There's no viewer rating, just the number of views. He thought to himself, where did this 3.7% rating come from? On television, 1% rating is calculated as approximately 460,000 to 470,000 viewers on radio, and 360,000 on cable television. This is not a reliable calculation method, but it resembles the usual way of calculating by selecting customer standards and advertising costs. People around asked Dunchi, who are you talking to? She turned around and answered, the person your brother helped us with. They exclaimed, that person. If there are 800,000 views per 4 episodes, that's 3.2 million, so it's about 8%, she said on the phone. Thanks, and whenever you're free, stop by and visit us. Che is still puzzled. It might be due to overlapping views, so it's understandable to be confused about how the view count is calculated. I'm not sure how to handle it. Then he said, anyway, congratulations. Drink in moderation and don't come back too late. Goodbye. After turning off the machine, he returned to his thoughts, realizing this was not the time to think about repeat views. What mattered was his impact. Ratings had increased by 1.1% due to his influence. He needed to account for 100% of his views to become an expert. In other words, no matter how you calculate it, a lot of views are necessary. Chap has proven that if you do something to give others a boost, your own will also increase, and you still have a card up your sleeve. A notification popped up. Do you want to buy part 2 of the yet-to-be-released IMO Dan Ichak series? Yes or no? He quietly rejoiced, created by the god Undong. There's a rumor that Undong's work has never dropped below 5%, so what if I give her some advice and turn it in a positive direction? Wouldn't it at least hit 3% by the time the movie ends? He smiled, not knowing if she heard him, but if she did, that would be amazing. After confirming the current notification, you have selected to purchase the script for Part 3 of the upcoming film. Class 1 Mordenio Chak. You have paid 0.5% for 1,000 words, and your current view rate is 2.63%. At the headquarters of Duarijian. Undong said, so what you mean is that I should change the appearance of the main character. She said, yes, the main character's impression is too obvious. As the plot develops, the charm is there. But it takes time to reach that point, I agree. You should increase the screen time of the female lead during her first appearance. When her charm drives the story, we can bring in the male lead. Undong muttered to himself, too vague. It's not that I don't believe in the ability of PD Hai Seon. Not everyone can be a PD planning for Ballon. Then she asked, do you think the script framework is wrong? Hai Seon smiled, no, I didn't mean that, but since you said something is missing, I tried to think and point it out. She sighed, but I guess the answer she was hoping for still hasn't come. Undong was gloomy. Yeah, I'll think about it some more. Then she concluded, let's end it here for today. Why don't you take a break to recharge? You've been working nonstop for 10 years since your debut. Hyeseoin closed the door. She looked worried. The guy next to me said, Screenwriter Han is too picky, it's tough for you now, senior. She looked at him, confused. Then, shrugging, the screenwriter Han is an angel, that angel, but there are many who become complacent after a few successful projects. He was surprised. Well, she added, she wouldn't know where she was if she didn't go through tough times. Chung-Soo, remember that. Going back to Undong, she thought to herself, she seemed a bit more irritable than usual. The cafe staff asked her, hello, what would you like to order? She said, give me an Americano with 4 extra shots of espresso. The employee muttered and then said, in that case, you can order HP Orezzo. Suddenly she slammed the table, startling the staff. Undong handed over the card. The staff, trembling, said, yes, I'm filling out the form. She stood in a corner, clenching her fists tightly. I never thought the IMO Dan class at Chalk would be this stuck. When planning, I was very confident. This was the first time I wrote parts 1 and 2 so quickly. I was truly excited then, but she dropped her head on the desk and sighed. Then I took out my phone, but I started feeling strange while writing part 3, and by part 4, it felt like I was being forced to write. Heartbreaking, she glanced at the script on her phone. She recalled the phone call with Don Che. How did you know the title? Writer Jang, he replied, that one. I once saw the outline and summary before. It was called Playthings Sundayo, right? She replied. That's correct, he said again. I don't like that name very much, so I thought the name Class IMO Dan E Chok would be better. I don't mean to say I'm better than you. It's just a habit of mine to think this way. Undong, which means wanting to blow off steam but still trying to stay calm. Fine, after all, screenwriters are only human. But somehow you figured it out, especially my style, Don Che said. At first I found it difficult. Usually, the summary is written based on time. But your outline focuses on the main characters. You wrote the summary based on the emotional changes of the male and female leads. You wrote the outline from a unique perspective, right? She confirmed, right. So when people watch it for the first time, they often say they don't understand anything. He responded, it doesn't matter how the summary and outline are, what matters is the story within it. Returning to reality, she thought to herself, Don Che understood her way of thinking. She texted, Jang, if it's not too much trouble, could you review my script? He replied in surprise, really? She said, surprised, that was quick. Then she sent a message, asking for honest feedback and not to be too formal, and he replied, I will send it right away. Your phone received another message. If my feedback is helpful, could you do me a small favor? And I really appreciate your offer to be your scriptwriting assistant, but I must politely decline. She replied with a single word, okay. The streets are packed with vehicles. Don Che sent the message, I've sent my feedback to her, it's my honor. He thought to himself, will Undong's masterpiece be a great success? Please step onto the red carpet, screenwriter. Now the next thing I need to do is... On the table is the script for the movie star. It was put into the box, and then sealed with tape. After finishing, the person collapsed on the floor. Hai-chin burst into tears, and I didn't want to go home. Hai-chin wearily turned off her phone and lay down on the cold floor. Suddenly, the sound of the phone vibrating shattered the quiet atmosphere. She immediately sat up and answered the phone. Hello? The person on the other end asked, is this the number of screenwriter Gong Hai-chin who wrote the movie Star? She immediately replied, yes, it's me. The person on the other side continued, hello, I am screenwriter Don Che. I want to share something about movie Star. Hai-jin nervously clenched the hem of her pants. Hai-jin thought, he's not a producer. Why? Looking at the phone screen, Hai-chin felt bewildered. The voice on the other end continued, I don't know if you're aware, but I once did a one-act play called Season of Hunting and Gathering on MBS. Hai-chin became excited when she heard the name of the movie, really, but that reaction was just in her imagination. In real life, Hai-chin tried to stay calm. Oh, I really like it, Don Che asked, and she replied, yes, of course. So when can we meet? Don Che immediately replied, okay, let's meet near your meeting place. Hai-jin recalls the time when a one-act play changed her life. I've watched it over and over again and memorized the entire script. If someone told me I could only choose one script, I wouldn't hesitate for a second to say it's the Season of Hunting and Gathering. The screenwriter wrote a script like this after watching my work and contacted me directly. This doesn't seem real to Hai-chin, who shouted with joy. The appointment day arrived. Hai-jin dressed formally and arrived very early. Remembering the voice on the phone, she thought to herself, His voice sounded very young. While she was lost in thought, someone called her, Screenwriter Hai-chin. "Hello, I'm Don Che." Hai-chin was left speechless with surprise. "Let's go to the cafe," she said. "You have a meeting in the afternoon, right?" Hai-jin replied, "It got rescheduled a bit, so we can take our time." Then they leisurely walked to the cafe together. By the time they got to the cafe, a sign at the door announced construction, leaving both of them unsure what to do. The store owner posted a notice saying that our shop is currently closed, has closed, and ceased operations, which made Hai-chin even more confused. The main character also complained, "If this were a script, I would have asked them to rewrite everything." Hai-chin agreed, "I think so too." Then Don Che asked, "Is there anywhere nearby? Maybe we have to turn back now." Right then, Hai-jin spoke up. "If you don't mind, would you like to come over to my place?" He immediately asked. "Is that okay?" She replied. "Yes, it's also close to where I'm meeting. Luckily, I've already cleaned up." The two of them kept changing their meeting locations. While walking, Don Che started a conversation. "I heard that screenwriter Hai-chin is about to return to her hometown. Is that true?" Hearing that, Hai-jin gave an awkward smile and replied, "Yes, that's right." The male lead asked, "Are you planning to stop writing scripts?" She replied, "No, I really want to keep going if I can. That's my dream. I've been an assistant screenwriter for 4 projects in the past 3 years. I was in charge of the romance part. All 4 works were well received. I heard many compliments about the romantic scene. So I think, let's create our own work. I skipped doing plays and jumped right into short films. I'm going to a meeting here and there about movie stars. The producers want to shoot it." Hearing that made Don Che think, so she returned home because she was exhausted from hoping endlessly all year long. The assistant scriptwriter is someone who helps the main screenwriter of the work, learns and develops their personal relationships, starting with research data, and receives assistance from the screenwriter if necessary. There are script assistants who meet disciplinary teachers like me and Kim Tae-jin. But in the case of Hai-chin, she signed a contract with the production company and goes to the company if needed. She must be a professional script assistant. Her taking on the romantic roles in 4 films over the past 3 years proves she is very talented. Looking back, it seems like Batlong's headquarters are also nearby. While I was thinking, Hai-choi announced that she had arrived at my house, and Don Che was invited inside. Sitting on the chair, Hai-jin brought out a duck-shaped glass of water. Looking at this funny shape, Namchin got a bit curious, and started touching around. Hai-chin felt embarrassed when he saw that. "This is the only cup I have left, but her cup is also shaped like a crocodile." "Forget about that for now," the main character said. "Hai-chin, first, I need to confirm something. Are you tired because of Musik Sota?" Hai-jin immediately responded, "No, not at all. I tried to fix every little detail. That is the work I cherish the most." Hearing that, he thought to himself, "That's the worst thing." Then he immediately said, "Screenwriter Hai-chin, can you devote your life to me for 1 year?" The protagonist's agitation left Hai-chin stunned and unable to react. He explained, "After accidentally watching Musik Sota, I really wanted to do it with her." Hai-chin immediately asked, "So you mean you want to join writing movie star, but why?" At this moment he continued, "It's a masterpiece, but deep down, Don Che wanted to do this in the protection system. If the revision is good, it will receive 15 out of 2% of rating." Then she said, "But Musik's STA is the work that will be released after the meeting." The main character replied without hesitation, "I don't want to jump into a project that's already been released. I want to work with you during that process. It would benefit me more to work with a new writer rather than an experienced one so I can use the script payment window." Those were his heartfelt words. Hai-jin picked up the crocodile cup and drank, her mind constantly racing. Seeing that she seemed undecided, Don Che took a document from his bag, which was the revised script of the movie star. He asked if she wanted to read it. "This is part 1, part 2, and part 3 of the movie star. I edited it and arranged the scenes in a completely different way." Hai-jin held a stack of documents and replied, "I read a bit slowly, so I'll wait for you." Then the room suddenly became quiet, giving space for Hai-chin to read the script. She turned each page, reading with great focus. As I've said many times, the movie star is a work with faint, brief contradictions throughout the story. That's how it is. While waiting for her to read, Don Che was like sitting on a bed of coals. "I am really anxious, waiting for the answer. Let's do it together, let me join in." After reading the document, Hai-chin let out a sigh, then looked firmly at the male lead, causing him to become awkward, tense, and frozen. At this moment, she spoke up. Do you like me? Suddenly, that question was asked, leaving Don Che unsure of what to do. It seems that both cups of water are also wide-eyed because of this shocking question. Don Che felt embarrassed, his cheeks turning red, and immediately spoke up, but the lingering effect of the question made him stutter. What, I mean. Seeing him so flustered, Hai-chin burst out laughing. The girl raised both hands and said, that sentence reminded me of 10 different situations. But I can't think of any context for this development. I also know there's no climax in this work, it's just a romance screenplay, nothing more. The screenwriter Don Che, you revised my script perfectly. Hearing that, the main character just stayed silent, thinking to himself. She must have felt embarrassed. A tragic assistant writing romance better than the main screenwriter. Viewers couldn't stop praising that part. She had heard countless compliments with words like talented or genius from those around her, and it built up a wall of confidence strong enough for her to skip doing a play and challenge herself with a series of short films right away. That's how the script for a movie star was born. At this moment, he spoke up, screenwriter Hai-chin, it's truly fortunate to have the ability to create romantic plots and characters like hers. Famous screenwriters also need help from assistants for their weaknesses, so there's no way an unseasoned screenwriter could handle everything alone. But, her romantic script is a masterpiece. Moreover, she has created 4 works in 3 years. You just need to focus on what you do well. I will handle the difficult part, writer Hai-jin, a film where she won't have to carry the burden on her own. Do it with me. The more you talk, the more excited I feel. Across from her, Hai-jin sat still, her eyes wide with surprise, her thin shoulders trembling. Then look at the script one more time, the script that he had revised himself. Then she turned to a page and pointed at it, saying, Okay, I think we need to fix this romantic scene first. This is where the female lead stabs the male lead with a knife. Don Che took the script in his hands and said, Is there a romantic scene here? The revised part of the script, he kept flipping through the pages to read them all. Hai-chin asked you, screenwriter Don Che, if you knew when the sweetest romance would happen. You hesitated and said, I'm not quite sure. Then Hai-jin gently stopped him from flipping through the script and said softly, This is the moment we strongly recognize each other, as if this look already confirmed she would work with him. At SBC station, Kim Tae-jin was losing his temper with his subordinate. He's not answering Saw's call. Hung-gun is calling. Let me check. He's not picking up my call either, he said impatiently. I thought you two were close. Gung-han immediately responded, That's not the issue. Kim Tae-jin put the script in front of Hung-gun and said, You have to bring the person who wrote this here, no matter what. But Gung-han just shrugged and replied, That was written for TVM. Do you think he will consider choosing SBC? Kim Tae-jin, seeing his reaction, got even more furious, grabbed Hyung-gun's face, squeezed it tightly, and said, No, that's not it, because TVM, I'm already having a hard time, and you still say that in front of me? On public television channels, SBC is the one that produces the most of these types of shows. Couldn't he have chosen to consider us? Hung-gun heard that and replied, But isn't that kind of nice too? The author themselves is a bit disappointing anyway. Kim Tae-jin calmly sat down and asked, Have you read the script yet? Hong Ji-yeon replied, I have, but I didn't feel anything like you did. You know I don't like horror movies. Kim Tae-jin felt exhausted hearing him respond so carelessly, placing the script on his head with a sigh. An editor saying that? Oh, my head hurts. Hyung Ji-yeon, I know your talent, but you need to work on your eye for things. Even with the same script, emotions can vary depending on the actor playing the role, right? He replied. Yes, so what? Kim Tae-jin then explained. But this script is different. This script will change the entire cast. It's not exactly perfect. But half of the good actors will be interested if they see this script. See, the audition will happen quickly, and there's a chance we'll have top actors. As Kim Tae-jin was speaking, he pushed the door open and went outside, then didn't forget to remind them, so hurry up and call the screenwriter to work with us. After getting back his quiet space, Hung-gun sat thinking, if the company wants to go that far, production won't be an issue. But I don't believe Kim Tae-jin will just sit back and watch this series get made. Well, alright then. He took out his phone and texted Don Che, Hey, your company wants to make your ghost, call me after you read this message. On the main character's side, he and the screenwriter had gone to a production company, and were sitting in front of the partners. Don Che spoke up. I didn't expect to meet the production company on the same day I asked for your opinion, screenwriter Hai-chin, and the production company is Bat Long too. Hai-chin just scratched his face and forced a smile. At this moment, sitting across from me was a representative from the production side. She introduced herself as Hai-seon, the producer of 8 Dragons. She glanced at the male lead and asked Hai-chin, "Is the person next to her your boyfriend?" Hearing that, Hai-chin shook his head vigorously. Don Che introduced himself. "I am the playwright Don Che. I wrote the one-act play called The Season of Hunting and Gathering." Hearing the name of the play, Hai-seon was immediately surprised. "Wow, you're the screenwriter? I really like it. So, what's the reason this screenwriter is here?" At this moment, the male lead slowly opened his bag, took out the revised movie star script, and handed it over. "Can you take a look at this? This is the movie star script I've revised." Hai-seon held the script and asked, "By the way, do you have any contact with the screenwriter Hai-chin?" Don Che immediately replied, "No, but I contacted the screenwriter Hai-chin first because I wanted to be a movie star with her." I agreed, "I like it." Hai-chin's face looked very pleased. Hai-seon frowned and asked, "Script or person?" And he firmly confirmed, "Script, of course." At that moment, she finally started flipping through the script pages. "I was just joking. Usually a screenwriter wouldn't meet another screenwriter and say they want to write together. Now I understand why Hai-seon was skeptical. But is she reading a script? The way she reads it and crumples the paper leaves him puzzled. After finishing the reading, Hai-seon closed the document neatly, her face beaming with a bright smile. The lead character was surprised. Did she like it? Hai-seon immediately commented that the weakness of Music's STA had disappeared and the strength was still there. Perhaps he really is the author of The Season of Hunting and Gathering. Upon hearing that, the male lead just smiled lightly, but he speculated that earlier she didn't believe it. Then the screenwriter continued, "But there was a problem that the estimated production cost of Movie Siota was too high, and that issue had caused trouble once before. Actually, you can't blame the screenwriter for the expensive costs, but things aren't going well because of the shift," she said, letting out a sigh. "Currently, we can only hopelessly hire a profit-guaranteeing actor. That's the best way to make the most money." Hai-jin, hearing this, said, "A profit-guaranteeing actor?" Hai-seon, seeing the partner didn't understand, explained, "A top-tier actor and idol type. The issue is that the revised script for the movie star by screenwriter Don Che is quite difficult for idols to act in. This is a film that delves into many elements, and can't be done without long experience in traditional drama." Both of them understood upon hearing that. Hai-chin glanced at the male lead. He said nothing, just quietly closed his eyes. "But it's also hard for actors to accept this script. I understand that the content of this genre can easily get lost. Moreover, this is the script of 2 brand new, unknown screenwriters. There's no reason why a famous actor would want to take such a risk." At this moment, when Hai-seon said we need a strong point to produce this script, Don Che had also thought a lot about it. His secret strength is screenwriter Undong. He texted her, "If my input is helpful, could I ask you for a small favor?" He hasn't heard back from her yet, but I sent her the script for the reveal, but there's still no response. Suddenly, while everyone was lost in the silence, someone walked in and shattered it. Undong burst through the door yelling, "Don Che, why aren't you answering my calls? I've called you so many times." At that moment, Hai-seon saw Undong and immediately jumped up. Undong then said to the main character, "Why didn't you answer my calls? I called you many times." Don checked the phone and couldn't say a word. He looked at the missed call on his phone and whispered, "Damn, I had it on silent. What does Honggun want from me?" Hai-seon saw this and immediately asked Undong, "What's going on? I thought you were leaving." Undong replied, "I was about to leave, but Don stopped me." Undong, suddenly cooling down in his anger, asked, "Are you in a meeting?" Hai-seon replied, "As you can see." Hearing that, Undong turned around and said, "I'm sorry, the scriptwriter Don Che. Meet me after the meeting, okay?" Undong had just turned away when Don Che suddenly spoke up. "Wait a moment, writer." Then he said, "Can I ask you for a favor now?" An sent a text to Undong saying that if his feedback was useful, she could help him with a small favor. Undong immediately agreed. Then Undong held the script in his hand and said, "So you want me to give a good review of the movie star script?" Then she continued, "And you want me to do that at a formal event?" Hai-seon, who was standing by, also spoke up, "That's right, we can push it forward if we have comments from the scriptwriter Han." Don Che also smiled and nodded in agreement with Hai-seon's opinion. Then Undong said, "All right, as long as the script is good, I'm willing to do it as many times as needed, but I want to see part 4 with my name on it, okay?" Don, hearing that, cheerfully replied, "Of course, no problem." Then Undong said, "You refuse to be the screenwriter for me because of this project, right?" Hearing this, Hai-son immediately asked Undong if she wanted an assistant screenwriter. Undong immediately replied, I asked screenwriter Dion Che because he seems to understand my way of thinking. But he already turned it down. Dion Che also replied, Thank you, but my desire to work in my theater is greater. He then thought to himself, it sounds a bit empty. But the reason I rejected Han's scriptwriter was that the condition to complete the guide round was co-authorship, and it wasn't certain if the assistant writer would be included. After that, he looked at Hai-chin and thought to himself, even though I changed the script and gave a suspicious suggestion, the writer Hai-chin still believed in me, so I want to repay her. Then Undong stood up and said to him, So please send part 4 to my email. Undong continued speaking and sent me the script he showed me last time. What was it, Cindy? Like this, she drew it with her finger, and he immediately recognized it as Sandate Cindy. Then she left and reminded Dion Che one last time. I'm not finished yet, so meet me after the meeting. Then the meeting resumed immediately. A moment later on a bustling street filled with passers-by. In a bar, people were chatting lively. Undong said, I have never encountered a situation like this before. It's utterly pointless to create trouble everywhere, to work like this without any sense of responsibility. I can't believe I ever liked someone like that. Dion Che and Hai-chin were talking to each other. Screenwriter, please make sure to use complete sentences with subjects and predicates. Then Hai-jin immediately asked Don Che, she said, by the way, why did screenwriter Don Che write the script of screenwriter Undong? Don stammered, unsure how to explain. Then he said, I changed the gender of the main characters. Hai-chin was so surprised to hear that, she dropped the piece of food she had just encountered. He looked at the script and said, The day we bought the script was Monday. Dion Che himself felt very surprised. He continued, compared to Movie Star, it only has a few tonal changes, as the content is almost the same. But one sentence in the script payment window puzzled me. The average rating prediction of the available script is 8.8%, while the average rating prediction of the purchased script is 15.2%. There is a significant difference in the ratings between Part 1 and Part 16, and that sentence is not in the setup movie. Then he thought to himself, it said there's a big difference in ratings between Part 1 and Part 16, but nothing has changed. What did I miss? Then he realized something and continued, the main character's actions in the script seem a bit off. Then he quietly thought to himself, holding the briefcase with both hands and heading into the bathroom. A man, depending on his personality. But it didn't match the character of the protagonist I read about in the first part. Then he stood up, holding the script, and exclaimed, Wait a minute, don't tell me this is. At that moment, Undong said, that was when I realized the shortcomings in my script. They are typical characters that appear frequently in Korean films. No matter how well I write, I still find it uninteresting. So, did you deliberately change the character's gender? Don replied. Yes, I think it would be pointless to keep changing characters based on their gender. Hai-jin sat listening with no reaction. Undong continued. I'm quite disappointed that you turned down my offer, but if you encounter any difficulties, feel free to reach out. Then she continued, I think the path you're taking won't be easy. Hai-jin finally spoke up, sighed, and said, Yes, the script was rejected in the meeting. Dion Che and Undong heard that and immediately didn't understand anything. Then Hai-chin continued, But I will do my best, let's work together, screenwriter Jang. Then everyone at the table started laughing and chatting. Undong cheerfully said, I will cheer for you. Undong went on. So jealous, look at those two working together. Then Undong immediately said, Today it's my treat, eat a lot. In another scene, the script of Don Che is lying on the table. In the room, the man sitting at the table was lighting a cigarette. Then he immediately said, Chungmen, huh? Then he exhaled a thick puff of smoke he had just lit. He continued, We have to stop this script. Kim Tae-jin sat cross-legged, confidently asking his subordinate Youngmin, You said the production director of SBC wants to produce it. Youngmin nodded and replied, Yes, it's production director Na Sang-soo. Hearing his name, Kim Tae-jin wasn't too surprised. After that, Kim Tae-jin picked up Don Che's sixth dark screenplay and asked when he started working on this script. Chungmin is not sure when exactly, but he guesses, judging by the quality, that it seems to have been quite a while. Tae-jin smirked and said irritably, So he did it quietly and secretly, huh? Scene change. One day while Tae-chin was waiting for the elevator, someone suddenly called his name. The person asked Tae-chin if the guy named Don Che was one of his editors, right? Tae-chin looked puzzled and replied, Yes, that's correct, what's the matter? That guy immediately said, His new play is quite good and captivating. You probably know that the theater is dying out these days. It's been a while since we've had such a good piece. Taejin heard that and awkwardly smiled, saying, "Oh, really? It's great to hear that." But hearing the next words from the other guy, Taejin felt even more uncomfortable. "We should keep him. Our internal team is currently discussing making a short series, and our decision is about to change." Kim Taejin remembers the last time he talked to Deon Che. Taejin smoked a cigarette and said, "What a pity." Deon Che heard that and remained very optimistic. He smiled and said, "You've seen all the possibilities. Next time I'll organize it better." At that time, Kim Taejin said, "All right, I'm looking forward to it." Returning to the present, Taejin had to quickly summon Chungmen to his office. As soon as Chungmen walked in, he ordered, "Chungmen, we need to stop this." Chungmen responded, "I've already tried something on TV, but TVM." Taejin didn't wait for Chungmen to finish his sentence, angrily cutting him off, shouting straight at his face, "It's similar to Sunday Cindy, just accuse him of plagiarism, that's enough." Chungmin was a bit nervous and hesitant, but everyone knew Don Che was the teacher's student. Kim Taejin was indifferent but vulgar, shouting orders to Chungmin, spreading the word that we had tried to stop him from infiltrating the center, and then he wasn't satisfied and quit. Chungmin was still very confused, hesitantly said, "But there's some news going around lately. I heard Don Che is working with a screenwriter from Dagon Et. Taejin quickly turned around and said, "It's just a cover. To shift my attention to Dagon Et, obviously, he must want something from SBC or TVM." Taejin pulled out the script and continued, "Just look at the script, and you'll see he's serious about this. But just to be safe, keep gathering more information about him for me." Chungmen immediately replied, "Yes, I'll get right on it." The scene shifts to the evening. Hunggun and Deon Che are having dinner at home. Hunggun says, "I can't believe Undong is looking for an assistant screenwriter, and she wants you." Hearing that, Don Che calmly continued eating, chewing with a crunch. Hunggun with a suspicious look kept staring at Don Che, asking, "Who are you? What were you doing in Undong?" Don Che replied, "You underestimate me too much." Hunggun informed Don Che that he thought the producer had high expectations for him. Hearing this, Don Che was very happy and said, "Oh, really? The producer wants to make your sixth dark film." Hunggun said, "It's not about wanting, but about doing whatever it takes." Deon Che said nervously, "Do you think it's okay? I don't think Kim Taejin will leave me alone." Hunggun explained, "Well, you know we can't do it with SBC, right? But we don't know anything about TVM, and besides, is it okay to do this? I heard you're planning to make a series called Music's Essay with a new screenwriter." Don Che firmly stated, "Of course I will do it. I was the one who suggested working together with her. I will postpone the Dark Friday." Recalling that moment, she was incredibly determined, the fire of passion ignited. She promised Don Che, "I will do my best, writer Chang. I will write until my fingers break." Don Che asked Hunggun, "Besides, isn't it crucial to have a production director who favors you?" Hunggun replied with his thoughts, saying that leaving Kim Taejin's work and having his own work attract the attention of the production director was great, but didn't he think Kim Taejin would scrutinize his work? Was he still planning to use it? Don Che thought differently and said, "I don't think so. My skills have improved since I wrote Sunday Chai." Hunggun kept mocking Don Che, "Now it's called Sunday Dende." Don Che was extremely upset and shouted, "Get out right now." Hunggun replied, "Hey, is this how you treat your brother who bought chicken for you?" Don Che argued back, "This is my house." Scene transition at Dagon Et. Sang-soo was drinking coffee when a director came over and said, "It seems a few rookies on our side have learned that the production director is from here." Sang-soo heard that and smiled shyly, saying, "Let's kick him out of SBC, director." The director laughed and said, "I don't have any authority." Then he took out the script and handed it to Sang-soo. "This is the script the production director has been waiting for." Sang-soo laughed loudly and asked, "Why are you giving it to me?" The director immediately replied, "You always want me to bring the script for you to read whenever we meet. Actually, this script has already been reviewed by the planning department. They say it's a movie that's highly anticipated." Hearing that, Sang-soo was a bit surprised. "Oh, is it something to look forward to?" Sang-soo picked up the script and saw that it was a movie. He asked in surprise if this wasn't a script written a long time ago. The director replied that this time a different screenwriter had joined, and they said he had a unique, creative idea. Sang-soo asked again, "Isn't this script going to end in a deadlock?" The director, who knew the situation well, replied, "Yes, but I heard he came alone with a script he had revised himself." Sang-soo was still doubtful and puzzled, unsure about his revised script. Then he suddenly remembered, that guy was screenwriter Deon Che, that assistant screenwriter under Kim Taejin, right? The director was quite surprised upon hearing that. Really, you know him? Sang-soo thoughtfully said, not exactly, but did he say he wanted to focus on Musik Suta? The director replied that, if he wasn't mistaken, he heard that he and the screenwriter Gong had already started working on the script. Sang-soo was shocked when he heard the news. He thought to himself, didn't he want to do something dark on Friday? He flipped through the script, reading carefully, with countless questions on his mind. As far as he remembered, the Musik Suta script only had romantic elements. What did he expect to see in this script? Sang-soo carefully read every word and sentence in this new script. I can feel it. The characters are much better. I can see the characters' personal perspectives through the dialogue, not just the writers. The script is more profound, and the structure is also more detailed. They abandoned this genre and shifted towards romance. Quite interesting, but still not the best yet. The director saw Sang-soo looking pensive and tense, so he asked, you seem a bit disappointed, right? Sang-soo sighed and said, no, the script is quite interesting. It's been a long time since I've read such a perfect script. The director still seemed quite disappointed with him. Sang-soo elaborated, saying the development line is still lacking. I don't think it's much different from the old version. It's as if it's just wrapped in a fancy brand label. The director was surprised to hear this, but it was clear that the director in charge had said that the content had changed and become much better, and they also mentioned that the only issue here is that production costs are skyrocketing. Hearing this, Sang-soo was extremely startled, quickly flipping through the script and nervously asking how the content had changed, and in what way. As he read more closely, he saw that the second part of Miraculous starts with the main male and female characters sleeping in the same bed, wearing only underwear. The development from there is quite obvious, and anyone could have guessed it. He even thought it was a necessary scene to set up the upcoming dramatic phase. Then Sang-soo was stunned to discover they started with a car chase scene. The protagonist is being chased by an unknown organization. Finally, they caught him and dragged him to a secret place. There, he meets the female lead, Hyunda, who has become a member of the organization. Both of them try to understand their situation by delivering lines that fit the scene in the movie, with humorous parts to explain the overall atmosphere of the story. Questions that might be answered make you want to watch the next episode. The more Sang-soo reads, the more he realizes, it's quite interesting. As he was finishing the reading, he raised his hand towards the director. The director saw this and took Sang-soo's hand. Sang-soo was startled and said, "What are you doing?" The director burst into laughter and said, "I thought you wanted me to hold your hand." Sang-soo slammed his hand on the table and said, "Please give me the third part of this script." The director replied, "We only have up to the second part." Sang-soo was extremely upset and shouted angrily, "Why, weren't they supposed to write up to the fourth part before submitting it?" The director quickly explained, "Because they haven't written that far yet. Should I send it to you once the fourth part is out?" Sang-soo put the coffee cup down and said, "Please send me the third part as soon as it's finished." The director asked where I should send it, to my personal email, or the company email. Sang-soo sipped his coffee slowly and said, "When I check something, I think you should send it to me through the company's mailbox. Also, I want to meet Don Che first. The director just told me that both scriptwriters Chang and Gong are already here." Sang-soo slammed his hand on the table and, with a hint of frustration, said, "You should have told me earlier. Go meet them now." In the office, Don Che was deep in thought about the script, while screenwriter Gong was working and humming a song. Don Che asked her about a scene, the screenwriter Gong, and Hadun's family background. She replied that her father was an ordinary government employee and her mother didn't really care about her. Don Che is quite hard to understand. To clarify, screenwriter Gong explained that her mother has a beautiful face, similar to Hadun's, but raising children is quite challenging and it makes people age quickly, and she hates that. Don Che asked again, "What about the father?" Screenwriter Gong said he is a realistic person. In theory, the most important thing about a character is consistency, their personality, the environment for growth, their relationships with those around them, and their goals. Even if they don't appear in the film, you still need to continually delve into these elements. When all these elements come together, the character is brought to life. A script with vibrant characters is the key to a film's appeal. After a while, both actors turned pale, looking utterly exhausted and drained. Hye-seon walked in, saw them, and asked if they were okay. "I brought coffee for you." Don Che and screenwriter Gong quickly handed her the script and brought 2 cups of coffee back to the table. They sipped their coffee eagerly. Seon asked for the script to review, noting that they were stuck on parts 1 and 2. Don Che and Seon shouted in unison, "Yes, I can't fix it anymore. I've done my best, I swear. I'm not fixing it. I don't know, now I feel like throwing up. Seon, seeing them like that, hesitantly asked how many times they had tried to fix it. Then when they slept, they said that 13 times she would quickly turn over, 13 times in just 1 week. Dan Che, with heavy dark circles under his eyes, thought to himself that the script was being changed twice a day. Fortunately, there were no obstacles between him and the writer Gong during the editing process. The biggest obstacle often arises when screenwriters collaborate, which is differing viewpoints. People often have different perspectives when viewing the same scene, but collaborative projects can easily fall apart over just a few small differences. And we didn't encounter this problem in Musik Sota, all thanks to screenwriter Gong. I'm not sure if it's because of her good personality, or if she believes in my abilities, but I feel like she always listens to my opinions during important moments. Choosing Musik Sota was indeed the right and wise decision. Seon saw that they were very exhausted, so she suggested a temporary solution for them to take a break. I'll go talk to the planning team, she said, then grabbed a stack of documents and hurried off. It'll take about an hour. The screenwriter Gong casually asked, will they accept it? Dan Che immediately replied, of course, you have put so much passion and effort into it. The screenwriter Gong chuckled and replied, not at all, you're the one who worked harder than me. I'm just following your instructions. Dan Che buried her face in her hands and said, you really are something. We're working on this project together, and you're just going to keep doing this? The screenwriter Gong, exhausted, laid down on the table and said, I'm sorry. Someone walked in and knocked on the table to wake them up. It turns out that person is the production director Sang-soo. Dan Che was quite surprised and didn't understand who the man sitting in front of him was. Sang-soo smiled to lighten the atmosphere, making it less tense and awkward. Then Sang-soo handed his business card to Dan Che. Dan Che suddenly remembered, oh, you're the one Hyung told me about. Sang-soo said, he passed the message correctly. I heard from the director that screenwriter Dan Che is here. I have a few things to ask you. Dan Che was puzzled and asked, what is it? Suddenly, Sang-soo made a request to assistant Gong, saying, sorry, can I leave for a while to go to the workplace of screenwriter Chang? Gong, the actor, awkwardly stood up. But Dan Che pulled her hand back and said, you can stay, you should know about this. Then Dan Che explained the entire production process to Sang-soo. It started before you wrote the movie Star. You had finished a script called Dark Friday Part 2. And I gave this script to a director I know, mentioning Dan Che and even drawing a description on the board. Sang-soo interrupted Dan Che, and that director showed me the script. I really liked it, but there was a small issue. Screenwriter Dan Che could guess what it was. Dan Che guessed that if he was talking about your old workplace, it could only be that. Sang-soo turned to screenwriter Gong and asked, you know about Kim Tae-jin's Sando Sandy, right? It's airing on MBS. She immediately replied, yes, I know. Then Sang-soo informed them that the scriptwriter believed Black Friday plagiarized Sunday Cindy. Hearing this, both scriptwriter Gong and Dan Che were shocked as if struck by lightning. Dan Che was incredibly angry, clenching his fists to stay calm. He thought to himself, he had suspected a plot from him, but plagiarism was an incredibly despicable tactic. Screenwriter Gong slammed his hand on the table in frustration, shouting, this is ridiculous. She said, I haven't seen the script, but seeing the hard work of the writer Dan Che, I'm sure he would never do that. Sang-soo was quite curious, so how is he usually? The screenwriter Gong replied that he was often very clingy and particularly stubborn. Sang-soo asked again, you mean writing the script, right? Screenwriter Gong firmly replied, that's right. What you mean is that normally, screenwriters are easily satisfied and say it's quite good, but Dan Che is different. He's the type who prefers to follow. The main character's first love in the movie is a girl he had a one-sided crush on when he was 14. Screenwriter Chang delves deeply into everything about this girl, from her personality, appearance, and way of speaking to her family. The final question is why the main character likes her so much, while the protagonist's personality is developed further. Sang-soo listened to her speak for a while, then stood there dazed. There are always a few differences, but isn't that the case for everyone? Screenwriter Gong continued, yes, but there are definitely some differences. The first love girl doesn't appear at all, not even in the script. Then she slammed her hand on the table, concluding the issue here. Yes, she wasn't in the script, in the film, and she wasn't even mentioned in the dialogue. Sang-soo stared in shock, unable to understand. Screenwriter Gong continued to explain that he did it to understand the main character more deeply. There's no way someone like him would plagiarize. Dan Che was crying silently inside, remembering when he worked in Kim Tae-jin's department, they always said he was overdoing it. Both Sang-soo and the screenwriter Gong agree. He's really creepy. Sang-soo said seriously, I don't see it as plagiarism after reviewing both scripts, but I guess some people might think so. The feeling of the scripts is quite similar, including using a specific date as the title. Then Don-chae took his phone out of his pocket and said, I have a few things I need to tell you about him. Sang-soo doesn't understand what he will show him. Don-chae opened the email and showed Sang-soo the contents, which included evidence that Kim Tae-jin had stolen his script. Producer Sang-soo finished reading the evidence that Don-chae gave him, and he was shocked, unable to believe his eyes. He said, You mean Kim Tae-jin, the one who claimed to be plagiarized, is actually the one who plagiarized screenwriter Don-chae? Don-chae confidently replied, Yes, that's right. Hearing this, both screenwriter Gong and Sang-soo were stunned, eyes wide open in shock. Sang-soo asked next if he had stolen everything. Don-chae replied, No, Kim Tae-jin has only stolen up to 1/3. Don-chae recalled the reason he could recognize the plagiarism was that not long ago, he had watched all 11 episodes of Sunday's Cindy. Kim Tae-jin is a screenwriter with a lot of experience, so Sunday's Cindy has its own charm. I was quite impressed with the plot twist in part 2. However, the dialogue and plot details have not yet been discovered, and the character's history is still incomplete. There are many gaps in the Sunday's Cindy, which my script can fill. This is clear evidence that I am the original author. Sang-soo immediately asked Don-chae, Can you send me this script? Don-chae firmly stated, Yes, that's exactly what I was going to do, making sure that once you read it, you'll know which one is the original script. Sang-soo seemed to trust what Don-chae just said. He smiled slightly and said, I see, you're confident. After that, Don-chae continued to explain, I'm not sure if my script is better because every film has its own strengths, but I have a different understanding. These are characters I created, and I had a premonition that I kept hidden. Sang-soo still had one question on his mind. Why did Kim Tae-jin accuse you of plagiarism? Don-chae immediately replied, Kim Tae-jin wants you out of this industry. If a screenwriter has a weakness, they usually face a lot of trouble and setbacks. Sang-soo also gradually figured out that this must be the reason why Don-chae didn't reveal this. Don-chae continued, Yes, if I'm blacklisted, I won't be able to debut, and once I can't debut, I'll never be able to reveal the shocking truth, the explosive drama of this house. Sang-soo pondered for a moment. Then he remembered something. Wait, he thought, didn't a similar situation happen before? Screenwriter Gong immediately asked about the plagiarism dispute involving screenwriter Kim Tae-jin. Don-chae replied, That's right, if I remember correctly. The Sound of the Bamboo Forest Breeze is also a script stolen and plagiarized by Kim Tae-jin. Sadly, the author lost in court. Screenwriter Gong said, I haven't heard any news about that writer since the sentencing. That case attracted a lot of attention back then. Don-chae responded with a sentence that made everyone feel sad and sorrowful. He said, That screenwriter committed suicide. All three of them were deep in thought. This is the frightening thing about Kim Tae-jin. Major media outlets involved in the legal battle between Kim Tae-jin and Choi Ah-rae remained silent about Choi Ah-rae's suicide. Her death was only reported as a short story by tabloid newspapers. Sang-soo presented his plan. All public opinions on the Dark Six scenario were confined to the SBC group. Don-chae heard that and became even more determined. He replied, I understand now. Sang-soo continued, Black Friday will take a long time before being released to the public, perhaps only after proving the entire truth through his script. And let's complete it together with us. Sang-soo made a very sincere invitation. Cut to Hye-seon's room. She is sitting there, lost in sad thoughts. Then she frankly told screenwriter Gong and Don-chae that the planning team had reviewed it but didn't give a good assessment. They said it was terrible. Hearing this, the two could only sigh and lower their heads in frustration. Then Don-chae and the screenwriter Gong quickly regained their composure, and excitedly said, Thank you for your feedback. I feel much relieved now. I want to perfect it along with Dagon et, but it wouldn't be useful if you say it's too bad. Seon just stood there, clueless about what they were saying. Don-ch excitedly announced, I just received a call from Sang-soo. They said they want to work on our script. Screenwriter Gong also said thank you for the past period, Seon. Seon was stunned upon hearing this, her mind now filled with countless worries. Then the screenwriter Gong and Don-chae packed up their things to leave. Before they left, screenwriter Gong said, Next time I will come back with the best script, not the worst. Production director Seon hadn't fully grasped the situation yet. Seeing them like this, she was stunned and quickly went outside to call them back. She shouted, Wait a minute. Then Seon cried and told the truth. The planning team said it was great, they really liked it. She was just kidding, we're all close, so it's okay to joke around. Don't go. Hearing that, Don Che and screenwriter Gong, who were walking, also had to stop, and they burst out laughing. Seon was still holding back tears. 10 minutes earlier, Sang-soo made the proposal, and when it was finalized with us, Don Che was very surprised and asked, "So you will trust me?" Sang-soo looked straight into Don Che's eyes, confidently asserting that he could trust him once he read the script written by the original author. But his intuition told him he should trust me. Since Black Friday will be released next time, what about Mu6 Utah? Upon hearing this, both Don Che and writer Gong froze, staring blankly, and replied yes. Sang-soo continued, "Make a movie star with BBC." Hearing that, the two screenwriters who were feeling down suddenly came to life. They were overjoyed, their eyes lit up like car headlights. Transitioning to the present, after Seon was told this story, she buried her face in her hands and cried softly. So, this is how it is. It turns out that the producer has the best eye for the scripts presented on set. On the other hand, if you reach the director's position, you won't be able to see that because you're too far from the scene. How could the script that the writer loves the most end up being the worst? Then Don Che asked Seon, "What is the feedback from the planning team?" Seon clapped loudly, responding that they spoke well and wanted to do it. "She told me already, but hurry up and release the next episode." Don Che and the drama Gong were indescribably thrilled. They high-fived and said, Scriptwriter Han also wrote a comment. In the evening, Don Che and the screenwriter Gong walked home. She smiled and said, "It's interesting. Not long ago, I was thinking about giving up and going back home, but now I can continue this career path." "Thank you, screenwriter Don Che." When he heard her say that, he waved his hand and said, "What do you mean? Mu6 Seota was already a great movie from the start." But screenwriter Gong still shook his head and said, "No, I couldn't have done it alone. It's all thanks to you." Don Che angrily said, "Really? Are you planning to thank Kim Tae-jin later too?" "If Kim Tae-jin hadn't stabbed me in the back, I wouldn't have thought about becoming a movie star," screenwriter Gong said. "I don't want to thank him for that." Don Che said to continue, "If she looked back, to be honest, she would be completely different from Gong Hae-chin, who was the Mu6 Utah in that past." Hae-chin was quite surprised when he said that. Don Che explained, "What I mean is, this was all predestined. You don't have to rely on anyone." Hae-jin kept staring at Don Che. Then they continued discussing as they walked. "When should we start on the new project?" Scene shift at the headquarters of SBC. "The leaders and those involved are meeting," the director says. "We will not do this." Then the director found the script of Mu6 Seota, raised it, and asked everyone, "What about this one?" Producer Kang, "This is the work that was rearranged earlier, right?" Kang replied, "Yes, sir." The director agreed with everyone. Usually, no one revises a script that's already been edited, but just consider it a new script. What do you all think? Everyone shares the same opinion. "I like it, and so do I." "There's a woman who must be mentioned. This is one of the most notable things in today's meeting," another person said. "I think we can use this." Producer Kang shared his opinion. "I remember that before the revision, only parts 1 and 2 were interesting. Personally, I think this is the best script of the year, and I also appreciate screenwriter Han Undong for writing feedback on this script." The director was quite surprised when Han Undong commented. Kang continued explaining, "I heard they showed it to writer Han when they met in Daegun ET." The director was still quite doubtful, but she only had praise, not just empty words to gloss over, right? Kang immediately replied, "No way, she has her own class." The director carefully reread the names of the two scriptwriters and was quite surprised, saying, "But Producer Kang, the names of both scriptwriters are unusual, aren't they?" Kang said, "One is a rookie, one has done a one-act play, and then there's this thing too. The production cost is 25 billion. The director was stunned and shouted, 25 billion, really? He was so shocked that he almost fainted. Then Kang continued, "That's if we need famous actors to join." After that, the director calmed down and said, "I thought you said just the production alone would need 25 billion. But that's still very high." He frowned, deep in thought. Transitioning to Han Undong's office, she was quite surprised to see Don Che and asked, "Why aren't you resting until I reach out again? You're starting to make me worried." Don Che just giggled shyly. He recalled that scriptwriter Gong Hae-chin was quite anxious when there were no calls coming in. But thanks to Han's thoughtful consideration, we got to work in her studio for a while. Screenwriter Han stretched and asked Don Che, "Have you been like this lately?" Don Che didn't quite understand and asked back, "Oh, you mean throwing people off? While working on parts 3 and 4 of Mu6 Utah, you pulled a trick with the Dark Friday." Looking back a few days, Don Che was on the phone with the director. He said, "We're still doing fine." But the director still asked, "If writer Don Che keeps going like this, it's going to be a problem." Don Che continued, "Don't you remember how many times we've eaten out together?" Scriptwriters Han and Gong kept standing by, urging you to leave, getting angry, while the project manager refused to budge. "I'm sorry, this is very difficult." Then Don Che gathered all his courage and shouted, "Director, you know this isn't a plagiarism script." The director replied, "It's not that, I'm not sure." It turns out that Don Che called Kim Tae-jin's top informant, MBS. He cried and asked to present the Dark Friday in their meeting. Now, Don Che is leisurely drinking coffee. He must be really enjoying himself, that guy. Screenwriter Han said, "Why don't you try aiming for an actor? The lead role might be tough, but I can help with the supporting role." Don Che thought she was joking. Screenwriter Han continued, "By the way, we hope you guys will have good news soon." Don Che chuckled and replied, "Yes." Suddenly, Gong Hai-chin was surprised to see that person doing nothing. Then she informed Screenwriter Han and Don Che they were calling. Hai-chin answered the phone and said, "Yes, Producer Bang." I don't understand what the producer was saying, but she just kept nodding and agreeing. The Screenwriter Han asked, "What did she say? Confirm it's correct, right?" Hai-chin immediately said, "According to the producer Bang, it's arranged, conditional. We'll meet and discuss the details." The Screenwriter Han was quite doubtful. Arranged with conditions, it was definitely that. The script is fine, but the two new screenwriters are still not convincing. To achieve a guaranteed safe viewership, Hai-chin doesn't quite understand how to secure that level of viewership. Then Seon and the two screenwriters had a conversation. Seon openly explained the situation to them, successfully inviting a famous actor. SBC saw the production cost of Mu 6 Utah was 25 billion. Instead of raising production costs by 5 billion as we guessed, they set conditions on casting actors, simply saying we need to push it to the top. Screenwriter Gong was incredibly shocked. "When thinking of the top actor to play my script." Hai-seon quickly waved her hand and said, "Screenwriter Gong, it's not that bad. The fact that they spent 25 billion and invited top actors means the response to the movie is very positive. Otherwise, they wouldn't have made such a special offer." Don Che said, "It's not bad but hard to do." Seon continued, "And I haven't officially said this, but if the lead actor is a top-tier performer, the rest will be fine." Don Che thought to himself, "It's pretty lucky, instead of picking both top actors and forcing interaction, choosing one main character and letting the rest depend on the character would be easier." Hai-chin still doesn't understand what the top actor criteria are: performance, reputation, or ratings. Seon thought for a moment, then she said, "Screenwriter Gong, have you ever watched the debut films of actors Han Chum-gum and Cha Ayu?" Screenwriter Gong replied, "Yes, I've seen both." Seon asked again, "What did you think?" Hai-chin was lazy. Han Chum-gum's debut film was quite good, Seon said. In fact, Han Chum-gum's debut film didn't just create a buzz in the entertainment industry, it was also very famous. Rookie Han Chum-gum quickly rose to stardom. In contrast, Cha Ayu's debut film is. Screenwriter Gong continued, "It's pretty weak, isn't it? Compared to Han Chum-gum, it is." Then Seon asked her again, "How much do you think they'll get in the next movie?" Hai-chin immediately responded with his guess, "I think it's around this amount. 100 million is the standard for a top actor. Even if the payment per episode exceeds 100 million or not, it still holds symbolic value, as the script was written by Gong, so that figure was anticipated." Seon gave the correct answer that Han Chum-gum is 500 million and Cha Ayu is 100 million. Writer Gong was still curious if Han Chum-gum's debut film was really that good. Seon immediately nodded in agreement, saying it was extremely good, so much so that even if the number increased, people would still agree. But that's how this industry works. We set the payment rates based on precise standards and objective assessments, not by ranking actors. Don Che asked again, "So it doesn't necessarily mean you have to be a famous superstar actor, right?" Seon said, "Yes, being at the top is fine because the ranking will depend on us." Don Che pondered, choosing actors near the top would be easier than those at the top. Top actors would select scripts very carefully to maintain their position, while those aspiring to reach the top are very passionate about their work. Then Don Che asked, "Has Dagon Et had a name yet?" Seon replied, "I think actor Han Sung would fit the image of the movie, but as far as I know, Han Sung is interested in another work." Don Che asked in surprise, "Which work is it?" Seon said, "The work of writer Han Andong." Hearing that, Don Che and writer Gong whispered to each other, "Don't tell me we have to compete with writer Han. No, let's find someone else." Seon laughed loudly and told them, Anyway, we'll try to find the best actor. You two just need to focus on writing the script. Don Che still has some concerns, but as the producer, we have time before sending the script to the actors, right? I want to adjust the tone of the script to fit the actors. Se-yeon understood. Oh, you want to match it with the actors? Don Che nodded and said, I will try my best if possible. Usually, changes are made after inviting the actors. I wish we could increase our chances of getting the actors. Se-yeon opened his phone and arranged the schedule, planning to fix everything for each actor, wondering how long it would take. Don Che raised 2 fingers and firmly asserted, so let's pick the 2 most likely candidates. Se-yeon said, so we'll send each version to the actors, and send the original to the idols, right? Oh no, we still have to do it if it's not perfect. Don Che is now quite satisfied. When Idol Star is the main character, the rights to the film can be sold overseas. Sometimes, even before the work is released, the rights are sold once the idol is cast. This reduces the initial burden of film production. Se-yeon reminded them again, so please send it to me as soon as possible after the revisions. Sang-soo opens the car door, ready to get in, but the driver is still fast asleep, drooling. Sang-soo called him, wake up. The driver was startled awake and started mumbling. Sang-soo asked, what are you doing? Have you been sleeping all day? The driver shouted, hey, you're going to Busan at 3 a.m. to bring clothes for the kid. Sang-soo laughed and said, that's right. The driver asked again, by the way, have you seen the script for Dragon Eat? Sang-soo replied, not yet, I'll check it out at home. Why? The driver continued, the team leader of Team 1 said it was very good, and if you can see quickly, that's great. Sang-soo was very surprised, and he immediately took off his blindfold. Then the driver asked if he wanted to see a copy. Sang-soo insisted no, he would read it at home, but the driver said they advised seeing it quickly to avoid it being stolen. I heard that Dagon Et sent it to you in Shuhan first. Sang-soo heard that and got up, no longer able to sleep. He quickly said, let me see the script.